When you're alone and life is making you lonely, you can always go downtown. When you've got worries, all the noise and the hurry seems to help, I know. Downtown, just listen to the music of the traffic in the city. Linger on the sidewalk where the neon signs are pretty. How can you lose? The lights are much brighter there. You can forget all your troubles, forget all your cares. So go downtown. Things will be great when you're downtown. No finer place for sure. Downtown, everything's waiting for you. Downtown. Don't hang around and let your problems.
Welcome to another episode of Bringing Down the Grindhouse, a podcast where we discuss horror in media. And tonight, what's buried under the floorboards? Bodies? Past lovers? The secrets you want hidden? And murder! As we delve into Last Night in Soho. I'm Mitch.
I'm Murr.
I'm Justine.
And I'm Jonathan.
So this movie came out last year, and it was directed by our friend Edgar Wright. Is he my friend? No, but I like to think of him that way.
He's all of our friends.
Before we get into it, I'm going to go into the production notes, and then we could riff on everything that's going on. So this movie was written and directed by Edgar Wright. He's known for co-writing Ant-Man, as well as making the film Baby Driver, Shaun of the Dead, as well as Hot Fuzz.
Baby Driver is amazing.
Yeah.
That's like a really good movie.
Despite it having a recent pedophile in the movie, it's a really good story.
Oh, man. I love that everybody who was associated with him was just like, done, dropped, you're dead. You're president in a series? No, you're not going to be in the new season.
Kevin Spacey, it was just like, you molested someone who was underage. Yes, it's about time I come out and tell you I am in fact gay.
Literally that was his response. And you're like, what the fuck?
Awful person. But the Last Night in Soho was directed by Edgar Wright. The story was co-written by Christy Wilson Carnes. She's known for being a staff writer on the TV series Penny Dreadful.
Also a good show.
Basically, they wrote the first draft in 6 weeks together in a rented-out office. And then Lucy Pardee conducted interviews with people who lived and worked in Soho during the 1960s. So it was definitely a period piece for the flashback era.
From what I've seen, pretty accurate.
So question about Soho, because I know there's a Soho in New York City. So when I heard First Night in Soho, I thought this was taking place in New York.
Oh.
But it's actually taking place in London.
I'm even worse.
Is the original Soho from
London,
the UK? Okay.
Yeah, I think the New York copied it.
Yeah.
And they wanted an area that was similar to it as far as fashion goes.
So I thought Soho was like a place in Japan.
Whoa.
Or something like that, because Soho, it totally sounds like it could be. Like it could be. I'm not that dumb. I'm not this crazy, okay?
From what I remember, when I went to New York City, is when I was in Soho, it was very close to Chinatown. So I was thinking that the two were connected somehow.
Ooh. Okay, so your presumptions aren't
we're all wrong. I want to know what Soho actually means, because I've heard NoHo for North Hollywood and Soho for South Hollywood. Not as much, mostly North Hollywood, because that's where you want to be.
It might be, the thing is, this is just a couple blocks away from the mainland in London. Mm-hmm. Soho is basically a general area where it is a very nightlife district area, as well as has a good fashion industry there because of the school that's right there.
Same with the Soho in New York. It's like the fashion district, basically.
Right. And so the cool thing about it when I was doing my research is that everything that you could want in a town is within walking distance, whether it's several blocks or just a few. So it's very New York-esque in the sense that, hey, you could get food, you could get fashion, you could get a movie, everything in walking distance.
That's something that's cool about a lot of the European cities is they build specific neighborhoods within the cities. So where they're like small communities, you don't really have to have a car in order to get everything you need.
Right, yeah.
Everything, like you said, is within walking distance. And some parts of New York City, especially in Manhattan, are like that too.
Oh, yeah. And even though the subway system exists, you could still go down to your local bodega and fight a bodega rat.
So the name Soho, it's kind of a mystery. They don't really know where it came from for the London one. There is the possibility that it derived from a guy who used it as a hunting cry at some point, but other than that, there really isn't anything else.
It was formerly also a royal park during the Tudor times.
Yeah,
when
isn't
the
it like
Tudors were a thing.
Didn't it become a square, and that's like the main area of where it is in London?
It is a squared area.
Yeah, so that's what it ended up being. And then other places, Mitch, you weren't far off. There's a Soho in Hong Kong.
Oh, there you go.
So yeah, see, right. So I'm not too off base.
No.
All
So
right, all right.
this just means that there will be a New York adaptation and Chinese
Right, yeah.
adaptation.
Yes. Last
Also
Night
makes
in
sense why
Soho.
the New York Soho is near Chinatown.
Ooh.
I'm honestly okay with there being different versions of Last Night in Soho, but from different regions.
Yo,
of
if they
different
wanted to do like
Sohos.
sequels, that's actually whoa.
Yeah, that could be pretty sweet, actually.
Yeah.
Just a little series.
Yeah, just a little series of all the Sohos.
Now, talking about different adaptations, I wanted to mention. Remember that movie we talked about for our 100th episode, One Cut of the Dead?
yeah,
Yeah.
And it was awesome and amazing. Well, it turns out that the English wanted it too, and so they're pretty much in production now, making an English version. Which
Oh wow,
I don't know how I feel about that.
me neither.
Either.
That movie
Let's
had a
hope
lot
they
of
do
heart.
it justice.
Yeah, we could only see in our
if it has the same amount of heart, I won't care.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yep.
So to end production notes real quick, this movie does star Anna Taylor-Joy, who we've talked about prior on The Witch. She was the main character in that. She was originally considered for the role of Eloise or Ellie, but they basically convinced her to change her role to be Sandie in the movie. We also discussed earlier that Anna Taylor-Joy is a triple threat in the industry.
I also just want to throw in she was the main character in The Queen's Gambit. Which
Oh,
I
yes,
think was
that
her
is
big
correct.
thing.
Yes,
lately.
as far as the Netflix show.
But yeah, she's a triple threat.
Yeah, she not only is she gorgeous and a wonderful dancer and singer, but she could also act. So that's awesome.
Good for her.
Good for her.
It would have been very sought after if you were in film in the early 40s and 50s, aka like your Fred Astaire type, who could do
Yeah.
all three and was very successful in like show tunes.
Think West Side Story.
Yeah, there you go.
And then we're going to basically talk about how she made two versions of Downtown for this movie.
Yeah, can actually sing really well.
There's an upbeat version and a downbeat version is what I've seen on Spotify. And then this movie had a budget of $43 million, and the box office is $23.1 million. It did not make its money back, but part of that has to be due to limited release due to the pandemic.
Yeah,
So
all of these are getting affected by it.
a lot of these movies are only out for X amount of days
They
or
didn't
weeks at a
do
time.
they didn't do the theater and streaming release. They did only a theater release.
Which is interesting because I saw the trailer for this in a theater.
Yeah,
I believe I saw it for Candyman. I think.
yeah. When
I
we went
believe
to
we
go
did
watch
too.
it, yeah,
Yeah.
when we all saw Candyman. Didn't
Yep.
we?
Yeah, that's right. We all went
Yeah,
together.
we all went
I forgot
together.
about that.
It looked like a very surreal ghost story, which is pretty true.
Yeah.
To round out our cast, we have Thomasin McKenzie as Eloise Ellie Turner. Me and Mitch love her in Jojo Rabbit with Taika Waititi.
yeah, huh.
I love Jojo Rabbit.
Jojo Rabbit's a wonderful movie. Anna Taylor-Joy, as we said before, she was in The Witch as well as Queen's Gambit. And then Matt Smith, the 11th Doctor from Doctor Who, portraying Jack.
I just gotta say, why do they turn all the doctors into villains in their later roles?
They just got the face for it.
Because okay, you think David Tennant?
Yes,
He
and
played a villain
Jessica
in
Jones.
fucking Harry Potter and in Jessica
Yes.
Jones.
You know what it could be? I'm sorry for interrupting. I
You're fine.
apologize.
You're fine.
But I think that what it might be is that they might be trying not to get typecasted as
Also.
like a wholesome individual. So they're like, let's keep my options open. I'll do something a little dark now.
Yeah, because
instead.
fucking Matt Smith plays a scumbag in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Pimp
can't get over his
scumbag.
Neanderthal-looking face with his heavy brow.
And no eyebrows.
No eyebrows. Like his brow is so strong it like pushes his eyebrows down. It's kind of insane.
You know,
like it's just.
in his intro in this movie, I saw a bit of the Doctor in him with how whimsical everything
Right.
was.
Yeah. He's
And
got the
then-
body acting and like theater acting kind of going.
And then it
Definitely.
finally goes south, and we'll talk about that how it basically plays out in
You
the
also
movie.
got to mention Terrence Stamp as the old
Yes.
Lindsay. That dude is actually in a lot of horror films, and usually it's a bad guy. So it's kind of cool to see him as an undercover vice cop.
Although we didn't know that till
Yeah,
it
one of the
was
twists.
too late.
It was great.
Yeah.
I love that twist.
Yeah,
Anyway,
really good.
This movie does a good job of fucking with you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Also, we have Michael Ayaho as John. I believe that is her love interest in the movie, correct?
Yeah. He was in. He's been in a few TV shows, and mostly as a side character. So cool to see him get a little more light, but still side character.
Yeah. A very wholesome character in this.
Yeah, he's actually
Their
That
good.
dude puts up with so
very
much shit.
sweet.
Honestly, I would have just stopped pursuing her after that first one. Not gonna lie, that's a lot of fucking
That-
trouble.
It's like, who's this weird ass white girl?
Also, this girl, she never looks which way she's going when she crosses streets.
No,
Never.
She just
runs
run it out
across,
everywhere.
Yeah.
That
She
would
almost
be the
gets
first
hit like
red
3
flag.
times during
First
the
red
film.
flag. All right.
First
Not-
red flag.
All right, so we want to talk about. Let's talk about the beginning of this movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we done with production stuff?
Yeah, we are done with
What are your
production
first
stuff.
impressions then? What did you guys think? Because we had talked about how Justine mentioned that you thought it was surreal, but not too surreal.
Yeah, like this is something that definitely gets into the sort of weird. There's a lot of like psychedelic effects that they do
Right.
with the cinematography, and it's definitely a surreal concept. You have this ghost story, murder mystery, living through people's thoughts and your dreams kind of weird thing going on. But it's still digestible for a larger audience because there's definitely some things like we were talking about Titan.
Titan.
We were talking about that, and that's a really like surreal, out there, probably should not show that to everybody kind of movie. But this is a movie that you could definitely show to everybody. So it's digestible, but it's still surrealist.
Right.
This movie has the household name of Edgar Wright. So this was his first. I don't know if this is his first foray into horror, but it was really cool to see the comedy there in occasional scenes, as well as the drama and the horrific imagery. You could tell that he was definitely having a lot of fun with the movie as it was going on, and definitely wanted to portray a story that talks about the industry and how it is, how young women are affected by this, even though it's an older period piece.
There's a theory that the movie didn't do well because of his critique of the industry, and that some of the higher up execs were like, I don't know about this movie.
Yeah,
mostly because like that's probably exactly what they do.
Why do you have to show girls in back rooms giving head, you know?
So this one, they didn't pull any punches as far as like what exactly happens to the women. And then even in the beginning of the story, I realized like halfway through that Matt Smith's character like sets her up. Like he sets up that fight with the other guy to woo her and bring her into. So he was kind of like, he's the guy that would get women to join at first, and then he becomes like their quote unquote handler for like
Kinda
the
like a
rest of
pimp.
that time.
He is
Yeah.
a pimp. That's exactly how
Yeah.
pimps work, and that's exactly how sex trafficking happens. Is
Yeah.
here comes this person,
And she couldn't escape.
puts you in a
too.
situation, makes you feel safe, makes you think they're their friend, and then next thing you know, you're being forced into these situations against your will.
Yeah.
After having it placed in a shiny package, you know, he tried to get her a deal at a theater as a performer for
Turns
this like
out it's a
burlesque,
burlesque
show,
show.
and they happen to be pimping out the dancers, which does happen a lot in the dance industry, especially with burlesque and ballet. There's a lot of pimping that goes on with the dancers that is not talked about. So I thought that was really interesting that they included that as a main part of the story.
I also felt like in the beginning of this movie, it's a very bright eyes kind of perspective. Someone who's
You have this country girl who wants to get away and go to the big city and start her fashion career.
You also have the implication that her mom attempted to do this at some point, and we later find out that she couldn't handle the city life and what was going on within the fashion industry to a point where she ended her life.
Yeah.
So it's like you feel hopeful, but you know that things are probably not going to work out or something's going to go wrong because she's a new girl in a new city.
I mean, that already foreshadows how gnarly like
Yeah.
her experience is going to be in the first place. Because if it turned her mom to suicide, like what is it going to do to her?
This did strike me though as like mainstream horror film, as far as like the budget and what
definitely.
they did for it, because of not only the custom songs, the talent that they got for it. The visuals is like they must have used like a really nice camera for this, because you get a really, but also when they were writing it, his co-writer, she really paid attention to what was going to happen in the cities and where you would go. So like the scenes where they portray you going to like a bar or a club, and like the waitresses or the dancers would be there, and then they show it when she sits down and they're like, what's your name, and like the multiple dudes, like that was a thing you could do in the 60s in Soho, was go to a club and pick someone up who was a sex worker at that place. And that's how they did it, like during that time period, and everyone was like, they kind of knew. And then that's why you had the vice cop who was in the red light district trying to figure out who was doing it. So like all of it is super accurate. They weren't like playing it up like this is actually what happened, and it's all really terrible. And then it gets all unhinged when she's going to the back to realize what's happening, and it's like you have the off kilter shot where it's like moving back and forth as you're going through.
You're going through every single room, kind of Scooby-Doo style, seeing the portrayal of the industry in all of its glory.
It's like all of it.
You have people ODing, you have people doing drugs, people giving head, people undressing and dressing, people smoking cigarettes literally everywhere.
People crying. And there's one point, there's a woman on the phone crying to, I could only imagine her mother, saying, well, it's not exactly what I thought it was going to be.
Right, yeah.
And it's awful.
Me and Murr watched this movie together, and I do remember specifically him, like, because it's doing that pan shot where it's watching every room and all of the obscene shit that's going on in there. And then he was just like, the industry.
Yeah. Right.
The underbelly. We're seeing
how
it.
Be though.
It's obviously a critique and sort of, well, not really a revelation because we all know about it. But then what do you think it's saying then about the industry then and then now? Because we're becoming very aware of these things happening within the industry, and we're not so forgiving anymore.
So if you look at sort of the duality of what she sees in her dream state, when she's getting these ghost visions of the past and everything, and then you're seeing how she's treated with her designs and her class and whatnot, because technically they're part of the industry, right? But her teacher's really encouraging.
Yeah, she loves that look.
Go with this look. Absolutely do it. If that's what speaks to you, do it. And then, she even has like a good line, which I'm sure is a big one in the fashion industry. Like, she's not wearing the dress is wearing her.
Oh, yeah.
Or yeah, I think that's what it is essentially. Like, the dress is the idea of what you're supposed to be looking at, not the person wearing it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a part of her. Because she's going to this, so kind of understated, but she went to a fashion school in Soho in London, which is pretty prestigious to start with. And then after that, though, they really made a point to show that what was accepted really well by the teacher in the class was this old style of 60s fashion, and that becomes the like fashion show later. Not so much the new stuff. Although Justine mentioned she wanted to know what the guy was making because that looked like some wizard.
It looks like some medieval stuff.
Right.
We even mentioned that.
No, he's the cool guy.
I could tell by... Shut the fuck up, Siri.
Siri just activated for no reason.
Shit. So I noticed the garbs that he was making, the fabric that he used is specific to African textiles that are used. I don't know if it's East or West African. Sorry, I'm not cultured, but I could tell that it was some sort of design surrounding that sort of culture. And a lot of times they are very royal designs. This is something we don't really see a whole lot, is a lot of fashion that comes out of Africa is insane and gorgeous
so nice.
And royal and regal. And we don't see it that much.
The closest we got was Black Panther.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
But you do have, these cloaks and capes that are oftentimes used for overgarments, things like that, obviously.
What we were noticing about it is that they're very dark, as well as like they're all hooded. Some of the stuff that like you barely see it. It's like a cutaway shot of him.
For what? For what he's making.
You can see the designs on the paper that he's working with, and it's just medieval. Very wizard-like, and it was giving me like some cyberpunk fantasy. I would have loved to see that design be shown more often within the classroom for sure.
Yeah. As far as how the story goes, I do feel like it stuck to the story we've seen before of someone kind of unraveling, which is like she has these visions. They hint at a power that she has, which is to see like souls that were dead in a certain place, but she has to like be there, like in the place. And so the room she rents out ends up being where she meets the kind of like a soul of the woman who died there, or quote unquote died there, because they really heavily suggest that she did.
Metaphorically died there, and then actually died there,
which is interesting then because she sees it, but it's not a dead person. So it's like, what is her power exactly?
I mean, psychicism goes beyond just being able to see dead people, but Mitch looks really excited, so I'm going to let him talk.
Yeah.
I don't think she's a psychic. I think it's the ghost sending messages of all the dead men
Oh.
that she killed. And it's
Well,
so they're
what about with her mom, though?
Hmm?
So she's able to receive messages from ghosts? Is
I
that what
would
it is?
imagine so. Perhaps her mom visited the same place and that they are just she's in that room.
So what I was going to say is that being psychic is a really broad term, and there's a lot of things that could be defined as a psychic capability. One, obviously, is communing with dead people, talking to ghosts and spirits and stuff. But another one is being extra sensitive to the energy in an area to the point where you can reimagine what happened in that place. You see this in Hannibal with Will Graham. They call him an empath. I guess that is sort of a trait of high empathy or whatever.
Right.
But
you
can go into a place and basically piece together what exactly happened just by seeing like what is there, but also sensing the energy that's there. So I think it's more implied that she's just sensitive to traumatic events that happen in an area to the point where she can see them and reenact them in her head.
Right. The story goes to like, it gives you like these red herring things where it's like it wants you to think one thing, and one of those is that she is obviously seeing the visions of a dead woman.
Yeah, because she's seeing her mother, but she's also carrying that energy of her mother with her everywhere,
Right.
in like the form of her picture and her memories, little memorabilia things.
And then the other bit of it is that they really want to convince you that the old man is an older version of the man who killed this woman.
Yeah,
in
but he was also directly related to the case, so that's probably why she's seeing him as the killer, because he's the only other person involved really that's still alive.
I mean, it doesn't help that he's creepy.
Yeah, he also is a creep.
But like, he's also a vice cop, or was a vice cop, so
Which
like he had to blend in.
It's when she first sees him is probably why she thinks he's the bad guy in the first place, because she sees him coming out of the red light district.
Yeah.
But knowing that he is actually a cop that was investigating the red light district, it must mean he was there doing work or catching up with some old buddies or some shit like that.
Yeah, it's hard to know.
But because he was placed in that area when all of this started happening, he was automatically associated in that way, and he's old enough to have existed during that time, so main suspect automatically.
So what I thought was interesting about that was the main character, Ellie. She ends up experiencing this trauma over again, and then she ends up getting a really good like impression of what it is that the woman was going through, which is the trauma basically of all the sex workers during that time, which is the endless amount of men that come in to these areas and don't treat them well. Like, it's obviously an objectification of like all of them, like everything about them. And so this is the thing that she keeps reliving, and to the point where she doesn't want to go to sleep anymore because she keeps getting such strong visions from it. But then it like shifts.
So when we were first watching this, immediately as she arrives in Soho, it's super uncomfortable for even me to watch.
Even the cab driver.
The cab driver was a big one. Just like, oh, what are you doing in London? Oh, I'm doing the fashion industry. Well, you have the legs for it. And it's really creepy. And she eventually went in to go buy like a soda at a store, and the cab driver was just idling by, waiting for her.
Waiting to see if she'll come back out.
And it was very creepy and unsettling. Not only that, but also dealing with a very fucked up roommate who basically says, oh, I believe she's going to off herself within the next month.
It's hilarious that they dressed up as the Craft during the Halloween party that they go to, and then like obviously doses her with a psychedelic. And so that whole, she's awful. Like, she's one of those characters where like, damn, I was hoping she'd get stabbed.
She's just like straight up the rudest person.
Yeah, just
like,
awful.
Just cruises on into your shared dorm room and starts banging on the bed next to you while you're trying to read your book. Like,
they even have the parallel between Ellie and Sandie. She basically, I thought it was a very powerful scene when she comes out of her room and goes to the party area, covered in a blanket with headphones on.
Yeah, she really just wanted to chill.
And someone was like, what you listen to? And she's like, well, fucking nothing now because you took my headphones.
That was a great response. She's like, well, nothing now. And then he's just like, yeah, do you listen to this shit?
It's just some grandpa music.
Yeah, that was fucked.
But eventually, I mean, multiple people at that party ask her what her name is. And it's very reminiscent of what Sandie had to go through.
Also,
one of my because this movie does...
Or Sandie, sorry.
This movie does the red herring like bullshit like so many times, and it does it during that party when her friend, like the soon to be boyfriend, who bless him, because he puts up with so much shit.
Yeah,
so much shit for this lady.
Literally gets stabbed in the gut for it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's when he brings her the Coke can and says, "Oh, I'm sorry, this was yours." And because of all of the previous interactions, you assume this dude is trying to do something.
Yeah, exactly.
And then later he returns her the Coke that says "sorry" on it.
Yeah,
because he drank her Coke and it's cute.
As the sequences fall out, she basically moves out of her dorm room into a new area of Soho, and she meets the landlord of this area, who is an older woman who basically has some very strict rules and some very strict payment options to be able to rent this room out.
I should have known after she said no male visitors after whatever time that it's obviously her, the woman she's seeing. But I gotta say, I don't know how I feel about them shifting sympathy to the men towards the end of the story. And
yeah, that was my gripe with it too.
I don't know, it's just because you spent so much time building up this, she's obviously gone through a lot, and then to make her the murderer at the end, and then to make her the villain is kind of why.
Well, okay,
I get
understand it from a filmmaker perspective and what they're trying to do here, and I think this movie was made more for a male audience.
Yeah, I got tricked into thinking it was something else. I think they were
trying to basically be watch out, guys, don't take advantage of women because they'll fucking kill you.
I kind of got that too, and I thought originally it was going to be sort of a story where she did escape and then figured out a way. So if she had not tried to kill Ellie, I would have been yeah, that's fine. She's not a villain in the story, and then she survives, and then you get this really dark story of how she got her revenge.
She kind of had to kill her.
But yeah.
At that point, because she knew exactly what was going on. I mean, she didn't have to, but it would be taking a really big risk to let her live.
Yeah. Well, they did another red herring by making you think that the zombies were trying to capture her to do something, and then they're in the end, it's they wanted some help, and so I'm just this kind of undercuts the whole men are being really awful thing.
The men also told her to kill this woman.
True.
Which is awful too.
Yeah. I honestly, when this movie plays out, you want to know who the Sandie is.
Right.
So you make theories maybe the old woman is Sandie, or maybe Sandie is Eloise's mother.
Yeah, that's what see, that was what my first thought was until you see the mother's ghost at the end of the movie.
Right. Yeah, because I even thought at first that it was Sandie's mom, the way they set it up. Or sorry, Eloise's mom.
Yeah.
One point I'd like to make, though, this might be controversial, might be, is the point of this movie to say that men are evil, or is it to say that the industry's evil?
Definitely the industry.
The industry.
Evil. Yeah. Just that it gets just about everybody who goes into the area.
Noting too throughout the movie that the industry is pretty much run by men.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then this makes me believe that because Edgar Wright has worked with Kevin Spacey, maybe he just wanted to make a movie about Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, I don't know if he would dedicate that much time.
Well, not just
maybe he wants to bring it up.
It's people like that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
In the industry that are and so it's sort of but then it reaffirms the idea that she's not getting her information from a good source of people.
Yeah.
And even I think the main character is Ellie is conflicted over this situation as well, and I think that's kind of why we get all these red herrings and what's an interpretation of these visions she's getting and how you can misinterpret those as well.
So the only thing is, at the end though, she does see Sandie as well. So whatever she's experiencing to me felt like if she is familiar with somebody or if she's in the certain area, that they'll stick with her because she's able to see them. And in this case, Sandie's gonna stay with her for the rest of her life.
That's what I was kind of thinking too with the interpretation. She'll probably never forget her time in Soho,
right?
And dealing with all the trauma as well as all the amazing period pieces that she experiences in her dreams. Those are super dreamlike states where she gets to see what happened to Sandie in the industry, going from someone who says, "I'm a big shot, I could do this," to being just a secondary dancer. She basically will always have a part of Sandie, even though Sandie tried to kill her.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a good. I love the all of the flashbacks to the '60s scenes. They're always really high energy, really well shot, beautiful colors, and it's this melting of. And then especially when it does the the underbelly of the industry scene where everyone's blowing each other, blowing coke, blowing butts, everything. Everyone's doing everything. And it's sort of like this, like the contrast between the glamorous and the grotesque,
right,
sort of thing.
I love the fact that oh shit, this is going to relate to our conversation earlier, Justine.
Oh.
I love the fact that Ellie is always within a mirror within this realm. We were just talking about mirrors.
This was a thing, side note, I forgot to mention in Titan, because in the first car she fucks, there's a mirror right above her.
Ooh.
That's true.
So mirrors in this movie.
Can you explain the idea with the mirrors and the different realm thing?
So, I mean, it's a really broad topic. And
Yeah.
I suggest researching it because there's a lot of really interesting stuff about it. But this was brought up when I was looking into The Shining, because there's infamous halls of mirrors in that particular hotel. And essentially the mirror reflection is in itself its own dimension that doesn't exist necessarily in our physical plane, but still, because it is reflection of ours, it does exist.
Yeah.
Implying that there is a mirror dimension, essentially.
It's like a window into that place.
And, you know, if anything is reflected in a mirror, you can essentially be in that. So it's kind of like this in-between spiritual zone. And a lot of times when people have mirrors facing each other, it generates like a portal.
Yeah.
So spirits can get around and get through really easily, which happens in The Shining.
Constantine shows this really well in the intro scene.
And then again, when you have, this is like a real life superstition too, that you shouldn't have mirrors facing your bed because potentially something could come through while you're sleeping,
while you're
vulnerable. Exactly, wreak havoc. And she happens to be sleeping with a vanity / mirror right next to her bed in this new place,
as well as there used to most likely be a mirror above the bed as well.
Yeah.
That was removed.
Yeah, that is even more proof of that. Like, that specific place was used for sex work, and they would bring people up there as like all of the people they were meeting.
What I find interesting is that Ellie basically is on that other side of the portal, and she's seeing this unfold in real time, quote unquote.
And you see that in the beginning too, when she first goes into her dreamlike state and she's seeing what's happening back in time. Is you can tell that it's not her through the mirror reflection.
Right, you see her and then you see the other girl.
Yeah, you see her walking through, but her reflection is something else, and then they swap places.
Yeah,
multiple
I did
times.
really appreciate the surreal transitions into the dream world. Like when she pulls the cover over her and then it pulls out and it's a huge cover.
Yes,
that's
a
that
great
like
shot.
moves away. I really appreciate it when the old woman is climbing the stairs and it like stretches and becomes this glass-like staircase where it's like in hell. Like
she's singing. And it's so beautiful.
It's a really good piece of surrealism. And then there's the other one where she's running down the hallway, which is like, or not the hallway, the alley, where she's running down the alley and it's like off kilter and all the dudes are trying to grab her. Mm-hmm. Those are all really good scenes.
A lot of great shots like that in this movie. I love both of those, and I know what you're talking about.
I also love like the whimsy of Matt Smith when he starts with an interaction, and I love seeing the swaps between Eloise and Anna Taylor-Joy in between these different takes.
Yeah.
She is dancing with Matt Smith in the past, but in her dreams.
Yeah, he also does a really good job of being a hateable character.
Yes,
oh yeah,
like
absolutely.
You really don't like him towards the end because of how he's acting with her.
One of those scenes that you mentioned earlier was when she would basically be in this corner booth with Eloise watching her, and they're basically like, "So what's your name?" "Well, I'm Sandie." "That's a lovely name." "What's your name?" "I'm Jenna." "Oh, that's a lovely name."
Right, she uses all these names
and over and over again, and eventually the cop is, like, "That's not your real name. What's your real name? Please tell me."
Yeah.
And then eventually we find out that we suspect that the old man in the story is Jack, because they keep portraying that within her psychotic episodes or her mental breakdowns, I guess you could say. And at some point, Jack is like, "I knew all the girls. I was a really big ladies' man."
Right.
Come to find out that he wasn't, in fact, Matt Smith's character.
Yeah.
But it was he was the
Lindsay.
police cop.
His name is Lindsay.
Lindsay. And eventually that spirals. She realizes that Jack might not be around anymore, and she's basically done with Soho. She wants to get out.
Well, she does eventually find out he gets stabbed in the stomach while holding her down, like, to basically, like, "Why are you not listening to me?"
You're talking about Jack, right?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, so great murder scene, by the way. At first you watch it and you don't know, you think she's getting murdered because it just shows the knife in the eyes, but then later on you see that she's stabbing him and then stabs him like straight in the neck, like straight through into his jaw. Which
over
is nuts.
100 times is what
Yeah.
they said.
Well, it was a really cool line because the old lady was, explaining everything that she had done, and she was like, Sandie did die 100 times in that room.
Ugh.
And then she goes on to say,
Heavy.
and then I stabbed him 100 times.
Yeah,
And she
because
didn't
it's
want,
all his fault.
and
Yeah.
she didn't want any of this.
Yeah, true.
She had ideas for her to be a big showstopper.
So this is what my argument was before. Why build this character up, show all the sympathy for her just to undercut it by making her this really dangerous killer, and then all of the men are suddenly the victims?
Well, the thing is, when they are showing her say, yes, and I killed all those men. I put them in my floorboards. I put them in the walls. At that moment, I had that witch moment where it's kind of just like, good for her.
Right.
Yeah, like yes, the industry definitely deserved that, and those people should be considered missing persons. She even says the line, people want to know where they were, and I wanted to ask them who they were.
Yeah.
Because no one really cares.
A really good effect as far as horror things go, it was the blank faces that were then distorted with many different mouths and eyes and noses.
They would be changing their shape as ghosts every time for different men.
Really good to like portray the sort of numbness and trauma that you'll get from something like that, which is the many people that might show up, and they're just countless. Like there's so many that are happening, and then they show up as these formless things, and you hear the voices over and over again through it. So it's all really good stuff that they use for it, and I thought that was really good.
What I thought was a wonderful portrayal was at the end, before Lindsay dies, he says, I didn't kill Sandie, Alex killed Sandie.
Yeah.
And Alexia is her actual real name.
Yeah, he knew, and like kind of couldn't do anything about it at that
It
point.
was actually Alexandra.
Alexandra, yeah.
Alexia is the other person in Titan.
Yeah.
Titon.
So then did you guys have favorite scenes?
My favorite scene is the surreal moment on that staircase where
what a great shot.
Anna Taylor-Joy, it's swapping between her and the old woman, and she's singing this beautiful song as this staircase of glass.
What is it, Downtown?
Downtown, yeah. Also a wonderful, wonderful recording of Downtown for this
holy
song.
shit.
The music in this is very periodic, and it's very nice to hear. But I love seeing her slash and change between old woman and younger woman.
Yeah.
And finally, she stabs the glass staircase, and you see it crack, and it's just super crazy to watch. But I love the surrealness of that.
I think probably my favorite scene in this movie was actually when she's at the club and she's in the booth meeting all of the men, and she's like, hi, I'm Alex. That's a lovely name, and just repetitive over and over again. And I like it because it's so sad.
The visuals get stronger too as you go through.
Yeah, things start to get a little more psychedelic and more hazy, and I feel like that's really representative of people who are oftentimes forced in these situations. It's really monotonous. Things start to blur together. You start to lose your sense of identity. You don't care about their identity. You don't care about it's just so sad. I can't even get into it right now, but it was a really powerful moment, I think, and just visually striking. Good piece of writing. Anyways.
My favorite scene, I think it has to be the first time that she goes into 60s land.
Yeah.
Because it's just so high energy and such a contrast to everything else in the movie. Because it's not as gnarly, I don't think, during that scene either. It's got a lot of really cool shots. The music numbers going on.
She goes and gets a drink and orders the Vesper, which is like the 007 Bond reference during that
the
time.
Vespa.
Is it the Vespa or Vesper? No, it's Vesper.
Vesper.
Yeah.
But
the way they
they're
say
British.
It. Yeah, they say Vespa.
Vespa.
Yeah.
The dancing is great, and especially like how Matt Smith beats up the other character, and they're running out like giddy little kids.
Yeah, no, it's just like all of that is great because it's setting a
great
tone
con.
That's going to be exactly.
That's like the ultimate con for the women, bringing women into what they're doing, because the guy ultimately is one of the dudes who. Like she kind of has to, what's the word? He put work with, impress. Like these are the men you have to please.
They're both very mysterious in this scene too, and it kind of keeps you optimistic about it.
The thing when you said con, see, I fully correlate that with he's conning her, which is also true.
Yes.
But I was like, this movie has a billion different cons in
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Both with red herrings and
Yes.
with literal cons that are happening in the narrative.
Also with the foreshadowing with the old woman, like, oh, some people leave in the middle of the night. And she's like, I would never do that to you.
Yeah, it does that literally. So it's just, there's a lot going on there. Yeah, definitely. Let's see. Favorite scene. It's hard to really pick one just because they're all really good. I did mention the stairway one, but I think one of the other ones that was kind of understated was when she is in the library and she's about to stab that girl in the face. I was just like, please. I was so wishing she would stab her, but then the dude who's interested in her grabs her hand and is like, hold on, and then like pulls the scissors out of her hand, and then the girl's response is, what the actual fuck, and then just leaves because she's so like distressed by what is about to happen. But yeah, I'm surprised that they didn't go back to that because like she ends up being in the fashion show later.
So brave.
And yeah, right.
So brave,
And then you
so
got those
brave.
girls. So like so this is why I don't rate it very highly, because there's plot holes for me. And there's also like, I feel like undercutting people. What's that?
I just wanted to make a little note to a really funny thing that happens in this movie where she's looking for all of the past murder snippets from the newspapers and stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like, what class are you in? She's like, oh, I'm in fashion. And
yeah.
he's like, you trying to make a fashion based off of murders? And she's like, yeah. He's like, killer.
Yeah. Into it. He's like, yes.
And then she literally does that at the end of the movie because all the outfits are everything that Sandie wore.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, she actually followed
Really
through.
cool line and a positive way to end the movie because you believe that they might be in an area where Eloise is poisoned. The guy is stabbed in the gut, bleeding out. But it ends on a high note because she's able to actually do the fashion show and show her grand.
Yeah, I guess the darker side is that Sandie's going to be with her.
Yeah, mentally and within her mind
up.
forever. But I love that it ends with them touching the mirror because you're basically closing the gap between the dimensions, and even though they're going to be going with you, you're still on the up and up.
It's like she went in and was communicated with a trauma that is persistent in this house and still affects the people who are alive and dead. And she says, I want to end all of it.
Oh, that's nice. That's a good.
And that's kind of like and that's kind of what happens. You want to end all of it. Everyone needs to stop suffering. And that's kind of like it's a point.
All right. Then what do you guys rate it?
I'm going to give this like an 8. I think it's a solid movie, and like Edgar Wright behind it. It looks like a big critique of the industry, and I appreciate it. I also like the stellar cast. Seeing Matt Smith be an evil piece of shit is such a contrast to me seeing him go with Amy and Rory in Doctor Who. So I love that, and I love the music in this because the re-recordings and the basically the remixes of these older songs made with newer people. And I also love Mackenzie Thompson. She's so great. She was great in JoJo, and now I have another movie to add to her repertoire. So I love everything about it. I wouldn't give it a 10, but because of the said plot holes, as well as like I wanted to see that bitch get stabbed, but
honestly,
yeah, I give it an 8 purely because the bitch didn't get stabbed.
Dang, I'm gonna give it an 8.
Oh, it's also an 8 because a black guy got stabbed.
Yeah, that's true. Could have been a little higher. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
You said it was almost a 10 or a 9.
Yeah.
When we were watching
it, I was like, "Oh, damn, he got stabbed. It was almost a 10. Now it's a 9." And the other bitch didn't get stabbed, so I'm taking it down another point. 8.
Yeah, 8's
but it's a
all
cool
around.
movie.
8's all around.
You haven't even heard my rating. You're always saying 8's all around.
Well, so far.
Yeah, so far. Okay, so far. So I wanted to say that it is not too common to see ghost stories nowadays.
True.
Which I think is really cool that we're seeing a ghost story. I really appreciate the time scene, the period parts of this movie. I appreciate a lot of the cinematography. I think that the actual plot itself is really cool and how it fucks with you. Gives you those red herrings. It's a constant con job all the way through. And I think that's great. And for that, I'm giving it an 8.
What about you? What's your reasoning?
8's all around.
For my reasoning for an 8, because the script could have been better.
Okay.
Also, I don't like the change at the end. I think they did themselves a disservice by seriously undercutting the main character and her motives. by then attacking Ellie, who could have been I think it would have been better if Ellie discovered it and then they like came to some agreement and then an accident happened where like another man comes in and like burns the house down and like that's
or
what
he
happens.
basically is like, you're Alex, you were Sandie.
Yeah, or like have something like that where they have to work together would have felt better to me. And then you could have still gotten to the ending that you got by like having somebody do that. To switch it around, I think put too much sympathy on people that you spent an hour and a half making into the villain,
basically hating,
and then you just change it, and then so that to me feels like, oh, you went with a really weak ending for something like that, even though it was kind of like a catastrophe at the end. So I think you could have changed it out. So I don't know, maybe they were getting to the end of their writing and like had to find a way to end it, but that didn't feel right for me for the story. But that's just a personal preference.
Yeah, so there's 8s all around. I give a little bit of the points to actually having them burn a fucking building down in London.
Did they though?
Oh, I think so.
I wasn't sure because it could have been CGI, but
it could have been a set.
I'm
too.
sure it's a set. Yeah, a built
guys,
set.
let me have this.
I mean, it's not like they
I'm
give a
just
shit.
saying, because of how dense London is,
Right,
I
you
don't think the
can't do
city would
that.
ever allow something like that.
You know what's
Do we not know about all these London fucking fires
Yeah.
that have happened throughout history?
Right.
Like that city been
Oh
burned.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love the throwaway line. I'm gonna end on this, where Alex, or the older version of Sandie, is basically like, "This is London. People have died on every street corner, every fucking building,
Yeah.
and every house. This has been bombed. This has been destroyed. People have dealt with death forever, and it's just everywhere, prevalent in this city."
Yeah, I
Most-
did also like her comment about the place, about the bar itself being a
Yes.
place where people come in and like their joy and laughter and all that stuff is like seeped into the walls.
Yeah,
And it's become that place.
And it further emphasizes that, the whole point of her being able to feel the energy in the area.
Yeah. Exactly.
You feel the laughter in the bar. You feel the sorrow in the bedroom.
yeah. You're feeling it because you're in that certain place for an X amount of time,
Mhm.
and depending on your occupation. We support sex workers in this chat.
Right.
Okay, so is that basically it? Guys, got any final
Yeah.
thoughts?
No
Good?
final thoughts here. Go check
Okay.
it out. It's a good movie.
Yeah, Last Night in Soho by Edgar Wright. So we have a couple of things that we'd like to announce. One, we're going to be starting our Discord server.
Well, hopefully it'll be up by now.
Hopefully it'll be up by now. It absolutely will be. We're going to be starting that, and basically just send us your memes, tell us your critiques about certain things. We just love to start a community with our fan base who could basically discuss movies as well as other stupid shit in the world. Also, we have our Patreon, where for $2 a month you could subscribe to us, basically get all our bonus content, where we will be having new uploads from gaming, horror game with Mitch, Cryptids with Justine. Me and John will be doing the sci-fi corner, as well as my area with Monsters with Myrrh. And then you could always recommend that certain horror content for us to review, and we will definitely put it in consideration for the schedule. Then we have all our social medias where we tell you to check out all of our stuff. We have the Instagrams, the Twitters, and the Facebooks where you get notified every time that we upload a new episode. Also, check out the Apple Podcast and Spotify. Make sure to give us a follow and a review, because every little bit helps us out and gets more people and more audiences to us. And that, in turn, fosters a better community for the podcast. And then finally, we have our merch, which basically helps us out very much financially. So we have our Teespring, which is up on what is that thing? Our link tree, which is
What's that thing again?
It's all on our bios on all of our social media platforms. You click the link tree, check out our Teespring, where we have anime versions of ourselves on t-shirts, cups, and hats. And then we also have the original designs that we use when we start for our trucker hats, regular hats, as well as t-shirts.
We're also going to you should just go join the Discord. And then I will also have the links for the Twitch, where we're all going to be playing horror video games together.
Yeah,
so that'll
we're
be
gonna
cool.
be hanging out.
Subscribe, follow the Twitch, and then we'll try to make some videos for everybody.
Yeah, we're expecting more content this year, so we just want to give back to all the people that care about us, and we love you all.
2022
Hey!
is the year of the content.
The year of the content, but it's art, right? Oh,
It's art.
It's art.
It's art.
Thank you for listening.
I'm Mitch.
I'm Murr.
I'm Justine.
And I'm John. Thank you.
Woo! Last night in Soho.